What is going on, guys? It is Ahmed, and I am back today with yet another video for you all. And today we're going to talk about Ocugen. This thing has been on fire, and I just want to talk about whether this is justified or not, and if the Motley Fool's take on it was something that is accurate. Because again, I do have some difference. I do see their opinion, but I'm actually I have a different opinion than what they stated on this article that was published on the 28th of April. So today is May 1st. So happy May, everybody. Again, new month, new opportunities, of course, but I do want to touch on Ocugen today. But before I do so and look through the article, we'll also talk about the technical analysis, the price forecast, and we'll figure out, what are good entry points. Remember, my channel is not for financial advice, nor am I financial advisor. Rather, I try to put you guys on the plays that I'm in. So real quick here, if you do want to get 2 free stocks, 1 free stock for just opening an account with Webull, between $2.50 and $250. Get your free money that way. Then if you also initiate and add $100 to your Webull account, you get another free stock between $8 and $1,600. So that's between an 8% to a 1,600% potential from a $100 investment. So get your free money, folks. Also with Blockfi, get some free Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been on fire. Get your free Bitcoin when you click the link below. Now back to Ocugen. So the big things that I want to touch on that the Motley Fool spoke about in this little article is that the late mover disadvantage, which is 100% true. I 100% agree that the fact is Pfizer and Moderna, because we're talking about the United States here. Ocugen, again, it's a stock that is listed on the New York Stock Exchange, right? It's on the NASDAQ. It's also on the NYSE. But what do we need to know, and what do we want to know, whether or not this is a long-term hold, whether or not this is going to crash after it does receive EUA here in the US? This is one of those that I truly think is potentially a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of plays. Because again, if we look at the forecast, it's already pretty much there. Currently, after the market closed, $12.75. So Wall Street's expectations have been exceeded with Ocugen on their average price target. Of course, there are people who have it at a $15 price target. Some have it as low as 10. So it's right around where Wall Street was kind of expecting it to go. Potentially, again, in the next 12 months is what they were forecasting, right? After it received EUA in the United States. And that would be a huge catalyst for Ocugen moving forward. Now, the late mover disadvantage. I want to touch on this. So we know that Pfizer and Moderna, when it comes to the vaccine, they are the initial ones that, started distributing and getting the vaccine out there. Now, right now, what I want to talk about, again, as a pharmacist, I'm very interested in the vaccine and, pharmaceutical stocks. But the big thing is that we're seeing, right, if you look at the national average, there was a huge shortage at the beginning, right? Too much demand, not enough supply of the vaccine. Now, this is no longer the case, folks. Now we have too much supply, not enough demand, right? So we're slowly and surely phasing out of giving people vaccines who are actually interested in it. So the late mover disadvantage is going to be huge. And again, Johnson & Johnson, there was a little skeptics that the skeptical thing that occurred, which, difference of opinion. But of course, there were some people who were having issues with clots after they were vaccinated. So people were, steering away from Johnson & Johnson. Now, as of last week, it is now back on the market. Things are looking okay because I think it was about 6 people. Remember, not medical advice, but I think only 6 females between the ages of 18 to somewhere in the upper hand of 50 or 60 had these blood clots that occurred shortly after receiving their dose. But again, 6 individuals out of millions and millions and millions of people who got vaccinated. If we look at the data between the other vaccines, we're going to potentially see some people who experience things like a stroke, right? Or, like a DVT, a deep vein thrombosis, something, again, a clot that potentially occurred that might have happened shortly after. So we don't know if it's necessarily correlation, it's causation, and I'm not here to really speak about that, but I do want to mention that, things like this happen, adverse effects after a vaccine, after anything do occur, but the sample size was so small, only 6 people out of a huge cohort of individuals who have been vaccinated, millions, 6 or 7 million people. So kind of insignificant, but it's not something we need to look over because the FDA just wants to be extra careful. Now we know that AstraZeneca and Novavax, those two are currently, they have deals, okay, with the European Union, etc. But the big thing I want to talk about is the different type of formulation that Covaxin has with Ocugen's product if they receive EUA here in the US. So we know it's effective, right? 78% efficacy right? Overall, 78% efficacy and 100% efficacy against severe C19. Severe. So 100% of patients who have been given the dose of the Covaxin, right, Biotech's product, 78% of them did not get any type of, C19, maybe some light symptoms, but 100% of them did not get severe. So that's pretty big. So we have to understand, relative to some of the other ones, yes, with Pfizer and Moderna, there's probably comparable numbers. But the fact is that, again, I mentioned this in my previous video, Covaxin's product is a non-mRNA based vaccine, right? It is basically what we're used to seeing with the flu shot, etc. But it's a whole viron inactivated vaccine. It's a non-mRNA. A lot of people who are within that, millions of people refuse to get the vaccine here in the United States. We know that's a fact. Now, of those millions of people who don't want it, potentially are okay with getting a non-mRNA based vaccine because they think, again, historically speaking, we don't have much data about mRNA vaccines. Although we have seen the efficacy, we have seen the safety studies, people are still skeptical, which is okay, right? Everyone can make their own decision. I respect that. But the fact is that Covaxin has come out now. They have EUA in India. They've been administering them, for a few months now. Now, if they get that EUA here in the United States, understand that more people hopefully are going to be on board to get the vaccine. That's A. And B, now when it comes to the stock itself, we need to understand, what's going to happen, right? So if we look at Ocugen's price action, that's the big thing that I'm sure you came to this video for, is that let's look at the 1 year, right? It was really not worth much at all, 10, 20, 30 cents a share. We saw it spike up 55x in a matter of just a few months. Really, it happened over a week. If we look at from the $1.90 or so, went up about 850% within that 7 days or so, pulled back significantly since, but then it had another run up the last week or so. So why am I here today? Because again, a lot of people are buying into Ocugen thinking that they're going to get EUA in the United States. I'm pretty certain that this is probably going to happen, right? Not 100%, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. But once that happens, I want you all as investors to be extremely careful because we're going to see a sell-off. That is inevitable, right? People are buying the rumor, which is really not much of a rumor anymore, but as soon as the news hits, just like what happened with Zomedica, right? One of my favorite stocks. As soon as True Pharma launched, we saw a huge sell-off. It was at $2.60 a share, I believe. There was a big buying pressure in the pre-market once the news was announced that they officially had commercialization. And then we saw a huge sell-off, people taking profits right when the market opened. That's why I like Webull, right? I talk about Webull, and I want you to click the link below to get your free stocks. Not only to get your free stocks, but also get pre-market trading. For those Robin Hooders, you probably didn't have the opportunity to sell your shares once the news hits. Same thing for Ocugen. If you're holding Ocugen, think about maybe getting into Webull to hopefully be able to sell it the day that we get the information that EUA has been set. Now, after the sell-off, of course, we're going to expect better earnings over the next few quarters, as long as, again, this doesn't actually hold true, which in my opinion, I don't think it will, the late mover disadvantage. Yes, there's a disadvantage, but the formulation is different, which gives it some competitive advantage over the others. So remember that as well. Now, for technical analysis, 3 entry points for you all that I like to just always state. 1178 would be a very good entry point relative to where it's at now. So letting it cool down a bit, but it might not cool down until, again, we hear news, but it can as well. Very volatile, as you can see. 968, even better entry point. And last but not least, 788. We know those are the 3 just based off the technical analysis. Currently, it is trading over its 50-day EMA and its RSI over 70. Again, that means it's overbought. So 74.42, a little overbought. So now we just have to watch cognizantly and wait for the news and be on the lookout. Pay attention to the news. CNN has covered Ocugen, big headlines. It's been all over. So as soon as that EUA does take place and goes into effect, we know what's going to happen. We're going to see some selling pressure. People are going to sell their shares, but be one of those people who decides to pounce if you believe on the company. So for now, in my opinion, I think it's best to take the back seat. If you're holding, keep holding, again, until we see maybe some news drop and then take your profits. But if you're up 100, 200%, depending on your entry point, consider taking profits. We passed, Ocugen has exceeded Wall Street's expectation. And Wall Street they're not everything, of course, but they have people who do this for a living. These 5-star analysts, 4.5, 5-star analysts that have been doing this for decades probably, if not many, many years. So thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. I hope this was informative. I hope you guys are all being safe out there, especially with the market conditions, how volatile they've been. We've seen really crazy green days and also super red days. But Ocugen right now, $2.5 billion market cap. It's still a very young pharmaceutical company with a huge upside potential. But all it takes now is we hear good news. And again, we'll see a sell-off, but better entry points are what we want to look out for. So until next time then, keep investing.